Look around you. The world we once knew seems to be unraveling into fragments of war, territorial invasions, and a polarization that defies logic. Do you feel like time is running out, not just on the clocks, but in the patience of the earth itself? Forget everything you thought you knew about global crises. What if every geopolitical conflict and every violated border isn't just a political mistake, but a dramatic reenactment of the darkest unconscious conflicts you carry deep inside? In this video, we won't just look for concepts, but for a new pair of eyes to see the pain that surrounds us. We're going to dive into what it means to be human in times of invasions and uncertainty, trying to understand why, even when we long for peace, we still find ourselves trapped in cycles of discord. It's an invitation to look through the fog of war and realize that every conflict on the horizon is, at its core, a cry from our own soul seeking integration and rest. We are passing through a cycle where the human soul cries out for clarity in the face of so much accumulated pain. To understand what is happening out there, we must first recognize that humanity shares a single, profound psyche. What we see in the war headlines is the visible projection of everything we haven't yet had the courage to embrace within our own hearts. As the wisdom that spans centuries teaches us, that which we do not illuminate within ourselves ends up manifesting before our eyes as an inevitable fate. This inevitability forces us to face the horizon not as a distant backdrop, but as a high-fidelity mirror. As we look at borders in flames, we must have the courage to ask, what within us has not yet found peace? It is in this reflection that we begin to understand that the weight of the world is, in fact, the weight of our own invisible baggage. We feel the weight of a constant state of alert, where news of invasions and geopolitical tensions invade our daily peace. However, ancestral wisdom invites us to an uncomfortable reflection. These crises are not purely external problems. They act as powerful reflections of the unresolved fears and rages simmering in the collective unconscious of humanity. When one nation invades another, we are witnessing, on a macroscopic scale, the same dynamics of domination and denial that occur when we try to silence parts of our own soul. Psychic projection is the mechanism where we place onto the other, whether a neighboring country or a political adversary, all the evil we refuse to admit we possess. Krishnamurti reminded us that, "You are the world." If there is war outside, it is because the internal fragmentation has not yet been healed. The feeling of separation, this us versus them, is the fuel that feeds the collective shadow. Until we integrate our own shadow, we will continue to create external enemies to avoid meeting our own inner truth. And as we dive into this truth, we discover that what we project onto the other is just the tip of a submerged iceberg. There is a basement in our collective soul where we keep everything that civilization has taught us to hide. It is time to open the doors of that basement to understand the forces that truly govern the current chaos. The collective shadow, according to Jung, is the storehouse of all the repressed and rejected aspects of the psyche of a people or of all humanity. It is the dark attic where we hide the hatred, greed, and traumas we prefer not to heal. The problem is that what is repressed never dies. It only gains strength until it explodes into physical reality as a global crisis. We are witnessing the overflow of this vessel that has been filled by centuries of social denial. Here, Stoicism offers us an anchor of self-knowledge. Marcus Aurelius taught us that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. If our collective mind is saturated with fear and the desire for control, the world will manifest exactly that. Geopolitical war is the physical manifestation of a psychic collapse. It isn't just territories being invaded, it is our spiritual integrity being violated by our own refusal to look inward. From this refusal, the masks the world wears to stage its dramas are born. It isn't just armies marching. They are ancestral energies, impulses of domination and fear that gain faces and names on the geopolitical stage. To disarm the conflict, we must first recognize the characters we are playing, often without knowing it. In the landscape of great crises, we don't just see political leaders. We see archetypes in action. The tyrant, who seeks security through absolute control. The orphan, who feels betrayed and cries out for revenge. And the trickster, who distorts the truth to sow chaos. These figures aren't just in government palaces. They inhabit the collective unconscious and manifest through movements and narratives that hypnotize the masses. Current social tensions and collapses are stages where these archetypal energies seek resolution. Krishnamurti pointed out that the conditioning of the mind, whether religious or nationalist, is what allows these archetypes to manipulate us. When we blindly identify with a flag, we become vessels for the projection of the shadow. The enemy becomes the bearer of everything we hate in ourselves, justifying violence and invasion under the cloak of false virtue. But this performance comes at a bitter price, and the bill is coming due now. Every time we choose the mask over the essence, every time we prefer judgment over understanding, we feed a fire that threatens to consume us all. The cost of this denial is no longer just individual anguish. It is the very fragility of our common future. Ignoring the internal dimension of these crises only intensifies their external manifestation. The cost of our continuous denial is increasing polarization and a sense of despair that seems to have no end. Traditional politics and economics fail because they try to solve with numbers and laws what is, in reality, a wound in the human soul. We are at a turning point where inner reform is no longer an option for a few, but a survival necessity for everyone. Stoic philosophy reminds us that we cannot control global events, but we have total authority over how we react to them and how we cultivate our virtue. If we allow ourselves to be swept away by collective hatred, we will only be adding more shadow to the world. The global crisis demands a new approach. The recognition that the true border to be protected is not geographical, but the border between our consciousness and the abyss of the uncontrolled unconscious. Though the abyss seems deep, it is also the womb from which a new way of living can be born. The same consciousness that perceives the shadow is the light capable of transforming it. It's not about fighting what is outside, but about healing the source from which everything flows. The true revolution, the only one left, is the one that happens in the silence of your own being. The first step toward true planetary healing is to recognize the collective shadow as our own. This requires a courage that few possess, the courage to admit that the seed of war also exists in our own heart. Collective shadow work begins when we stop projecting and start integrating. By recognizing our anger, our greed, and our desire for control, we take away the power of these forces to act on their own on the world stage. Outer peace is the byproduct of an inner silence won through presence. When you become aware of your own shadows, you stop being a pawn in the hands of the collective unconscious. As Krishnamurti taught, freedom begins the moment you perceive the observer and the observed as one. Your personal transformation isn't just self-help. It is an act of spiritual resistance against chaos and a vital contribution to the future of our planet. In this moment of transition, the pain you feel for the world is not a burden, but an invitation. It is your soul whispering that you are connected to the all. Remember, not all pain is punishment. Some are teachers that force us to awaken. I invite you to take a short pause now. Visualize your heart as a temple that lives in the silence of your chest. Imagine the news of war, the invasions, and the chaos as winds blowing outside. Instead of fighting the wind, become the empty space inside the temple. Breathe deeply, bringing awareness to the now. Say to yourself, I withdraw my projections. I choose the peace that comes from understanding, not from control. And what if the crisis that scares you today is, in fact, the portal to the new consciousness you have always sought? If these words touched something inside you, perhaps it's time to take one more step on this path of reuniting with your inner truth. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to continue receiving content that nourishes the soul with presence and authenticity. Share in the comments what resonated with your heart. Your story might be the mirror someone else needed to find. If you are looking for a safe harbor, know that our community is the sanctuary where fertile silence is shared and deepened. Enjoy the channel's posts. And to keep expanding this field of presence, we suggest the video pinned in the card. May it be a source of inspiration on your journey. Peace and light.